Alex had always dreamed of living near the water. When he finally bought a charming house in the peaceful suburban community of Willow Creek, it felt like a fresh start. The neighborhood was picturesque, rows of neatly trimmed lawns, families strolling after dinner, and the gentle ripple of the nearby lake where Alex planned to park his prized possession, a sleek, gleaming boat he'd spent years restoring. It wasn't just a boat to him. It was freedom, memories, and a symbol of everything he loved. But something felt off from the moment he pulled into his driveway. As Alex unloaded the last boxes, he caught a glimpse of his new neighbor across the street. A stern woman, impeccably dressed, was watching him with sharp eyes that never seemed to blink. Her gaze felt piercing, like she was silently measuring him up, weighing whether he belonged here. Alex tried to smile and nod, but she didn't return the gesture. Instead, she turned and walked inside swiftly. He would soon learn her name was Karen, HOA president, and the neighborhood's self-appointed watchdog. The homeowners association meetings so far had seemed routine, nothing Alex thought too much about. But it quickly became clear Karen had an iron grip on this community. She was the type who thrived on control, enforcing every rule to the letter, and then some. And the moment she saw Alex's boat parked by the lakeside, her cold stare sharpened even further. At first, Alex dismissed it as paranoia. Maybe Karen was just protective of the neighborhood's look and feel. But one afternoon, while tending to his garden, Alex found a folded note pinned under his windshield wiper. The paper was cheap, the handwriting jagged and harsh. "Your boat doesn't belong here. Remove it or face consequences." His heart pounded as he read the words again. Who would send such a threatening message, and why target the boat? Determined not to be bullied, Alex attended the next HOA meeting prepared. When Karen stood up, her voice sharp as a whip, she addressed the room. "Neighbors, it's come to my attention that Mr. Alex here has placed a large boat on community property without approval," she declared. "This is not only unsightly but a blatant disregard for our neighborhood standards." Alex raised his hand calmly. "Excuse me, Karen. I've reviewed the HOA guidelines thoroughly. There's no rule against parking boats in designated areas near the lake. Other residents have boats too." Karen's lips curled into a thin, dismissive smile. "Rules are meant to be respected in spirit, not just the letter. We all want a harmonious neighborhood." The room shifted uncomfortably, sensing an undercurrent of tension. But Karen wasn't done. "This isn't personal, Alex. It's about community standards." Her eyes locked on his. "Consider this your first and final warning." Walking home that evening, Alex's mind raced. Karen wasn't just enforcing rules. She was waging a silent war, and he was the target. Then came the moments that truly unsettled him. From his porch, Alex noticed Karen walking past his house late at night, her figure shadowed by the streetlights. She paused by the boat, her hands folded tightly, staring as if she were plotting something. When she caught his eyes, she quickly looked away and disappeared into the darkness. The next day, Alex found his boat's hull scratched deep with angry gouges. There was no way it had happened accidentally. Someone wanted to send a message, and it was loud and clear. The once peaceful neighborhood was now charged with unease. Alex realized Karen's obsession was more than petty annoyance. It was dangerous. And whatever was coming next, he knew it would change everything. The next morning, Alex awoke with a knot in his stomach. The scratches on his boat weren't just vandalism. They were a declaration of war. But instead of backing down, Alex was determined to stand his ground. His boat wasn't just a possession. It was a part of his life, a symbol of freedom and hard work. Word spread quickly through the neighborhood that Alex's boat had been damaged. Some neighbors expressed sympathy, but others remained tight-lipped, clearly afraid of Karen's wrath. She ruled Willow Creek like a queen with an iron fist, and few dared to cross her. But Alex had never been one to be intimidated. That afternoon, the HOA held its monthly community meeting in the small, brightly lit clubhouse. The air was thick with tension, and Alex could feel eyes on him as he walked in. Karen was already there, seated at the head of the table, her expression cold and unreadable. As the meeting began, Karen wasted no time. "Before we get into the usual business," she began, "I want to address a growing problem. Some residents have been blatantly ignoring our community standards. Mr. Alex, your boat has caused more disruption than you realize. Alex stood up, steady and confident. Karen, with all due respect, I've complied with every HOA rule. The guidelines don't say anything about boats being prohibited or needing approval in the area where mine is parked. Karen's lips curled into a smirk. Rules are guidelines, Alex. They're meant to protect our neighborhood's image. Your boat doesn't fit the aesthetic. It's an eyesore, and frankly, it's disrespectful to the community. The room murmured in agreement from some of the older residents, their faces wary, but not openly hostile. Alex felt a pang of frustration, but kept his composure. I'm not trying to disrespect anyone, he said firmly. This boat has been a labor of love, and I'm willing to work with the community, but there's no official rule against it. If the board wants to change the guidelines, they need to do it properly, not intimidate residents. Karen's eyes flashed dangerously. Intimidation? I'm only protecting our community. If you continue this defiance, there will be consequences. Alex's heart raced. Was she threatening him? The words hung in the air like a dark cloud. After the meeting, Alex found himself cornered by a few neighbors who urged him to back down. Karen doesn't play around, one warned. She's powerful. She's made people's lives miserable for less. But Alex refused to be cowed. He began speaking to other boat owners in nearby communities and researching HOA bylaws, determined to find a way to protect his rights. Meanwhile, Karen's campaign against him escalated. The next morning, Alex discovered another note tucked inside his mailbox, this one more explicit. Remove the boat, or make sure it's gone for good. A chill ran down Alex's spine. This was no longer just about rules or aesthetics, it was personal. That night, as Alex sat on his porch, he noticed Karen walking by again, her eyes fixed on his boat. This time, she didn't hide her contempt. When their eyes met, she smiled. But it wasn't friendly. It was a warning. Alex knew this was more than a petty feud. Karen was sending a message, and the stakes were rising fast. Yet Alex was ready to fight. He wasn't going to let fear control him, not in his new home, and certainly not over something he loved. Unbeknownst to him, Karen was already planning her next move, one that would turn the quiet neighborhood upside down. That night, the neighborhood lay wrapped in silence. The soft rustle of leaves and the distant hum of crickets filled the air, masking the storm that was about to break. Alex had barely drifted off when a strange smell pulled him from sleep, something sharp and acrid, the unmistakable scent of smoke. His heart thumped wildly as he scrambled out of bed. Thrown into alert, he threw open the curtains, eyes searching the dark. Then, through the shadows near the lake, a flicker of orange caught his attention. Flames. His boat, his pride and joy, was engulfed in fire. Adrenaline surged. Alex raced outside, his bare feet pounding on the pavement as he yelled for help. Neighbors emerged, drawn by the glow and crackling noise. Someone called 911. The fire spread quickly, licking hungrily at the hull, turning polished wood to char. The fire department arrived within minutes, battling the blaze with precision, but the damage was already severe. Alex watched helplessly as thick black smoke billowed upward, twisting against the night sky. The boat that had survived years of storms and long repairs was now a smoking ruin. Whispers erupted immediately. Was it an accident? A careless spark from nearby fire pits, or faulty wiring, or something more sinister? Alex's mind reeled. Who could do this? Who would want to hurt him like this? Karen's face flashed in his thoughts. The cold stares, the threats, the notes. Could she be behind it? Was this the terrifying escalation she had hinted at? He knew he couldn't accuse without proof. The police would need evidence. But deep down, Alex felt the answer was already written in the scorched wood. The next day, the neighborhood buzzed with gossip and speculation. Karen kept a careful distance, but Alex caught her watching him with a thin smile, almost triumphant. That smile stoked a fire inside him, a dangerous mix of fear and fury. If Karen thought she could scare him away by burning his boat, she was dead wrong. Alex began piecing together the puzzle. He reviewed surveillance cameras around the neighborhood, his own and those of neighbors who had been sympathetic. At first, the footage showed only shadows, flickering movement too vague to identify. But then, a dark figure appeared, lurking near his boat minutes before the fire. The figure's shape was familiar, tall, purposeful, moving with quiet confidence. Alex's pulse quickened as he recognized the silhouette. It was Karen. Confronting Karen without proof was risky, but Alex wasn't alone. Some neighbors who'd been uneasy with Karen's authoritarian ways quietly offered support, promising to stand with him if he chose to fight back. The question now was how. Alex dug deeper, poring over HOA bylaws, meeting minutes, and neighborhood statutes. He needed a way to protect himself legally, something more powerful than the empty threats and smoldering remains of his boat. Then, in a dusty binder buried in the HOA records, he found it, a rarely used clause allowing a homeowner to call an emergency meeting and suspend the entire HOA board if misconduct or abuse of power could be proven. This was the secret weapon. Alex felt a spark of hope for the first time since the fire. Karen might have tried to intimidate him, but he had the power to flip the board's control, and it was only a matter of time before he used it. But first, he had to build his case. And as the sun set again over Willow Creek, Alex realized the peaceful neighborhood was no longer safe. Dark secrets and dangerous games were unfolding beneath its serene surface, and the battle for his home was just beginning. After the fire, Willow Creek felt like a neighborhood transformed. The gentle hum of daily life was replaced with whispered conversations and furtive glances. Every step Alex took was shadowed by suspicion and unease. He wasn't just a victim now, he was a target. Determined not to be intimidated, Alex doubled down on his investigation. He began by reviewing every scrap of evidence he could find. Neighborhood security cameras, eyewitness accounts, and the countless notes and threats he'd received. He reached out to neighbors who'd been silent so far, hoping to find allies among them. One evening, Mrs. Jensen, an elderly widow who lived 2 houses down, knocked on Alex's door. Her eyes, sharp despite her age, revealed what her lips wouldn't say outright. "I don't like Karen," she whispered. "She's been pushing too hard for years, threatening people if they don't fall in line. But what happened to your boat? That's new." Darker. Mrs. Jensen handed Alex a small USB drive, telling him she'd found it hidden in her yard, not far from where the boat had burned. "I don't know what's on it exactly," she said cautiously, but it felt like it might be important. Back inside, Alex plugged the drive into his laptop. The files were a collection of emails, meeting notes, and photos, all pointing to a network of manipulation within the HOA board. Hidden agendas, secret alliances, and a pattern of intimidating residents who dared challenge Karen's authority. The deeper Alex went, the more he realized Karen was not acting alone. Other board members, silent but complicit, had been backing her aggressive tactics. Just as he was piecing this together, his phone buzzed. It was a text from an unknown number. "Stop digging, Alex. Some truths are better left buried." Alex's blood ran cold. The threat was clear. He was close to exposing more than just petty neighborhood politics. Instead of backing down, Alex felt a surge of defiance. He knew he was onto something big. If the board could destroy his boat, what else were they capable of? The next day, Alex returned to the lakefront, where the charred remains of his boat sat under a tarp. As he examined the wreckage, he noticed faint footprints leading away from the scene, too fresh to be old. Following the trail, he found himself near a small shed tucked behind the community center. The door was slightly ajar. Peering inside, Alex glimpsed boxes of documents and binders, materials that looked like records of HOA meetings and financial statements. His heart pounded. Could this be the smoking gun he needed? Before he could step closer, a shadow moved behind him. A sharp voice whispered coldly in his ear. "Curiosity can get you burned, Alex." He spun around, coming face to face with Karen. Her eyes glittered with menace. "You're playing a dangerous game," she said, her tone low but deadly. "You think you can take us down? We own this place, every street, every rule. And if you keep pushing, I won't just stop at your boat." Alex swallowed hard, but met her gaze evenly. I'm not afraid of you. This community deserves better than fear and threats." Karen smiled, but it was a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Then prepare for the consequences. That night, Alex's phone was flooded with anonymous calls. His mailbox contained another note, this one chilling. "You've been warned. Leave before it's too late." But Alex wasn't backing down. He realized Karen's threats were an admission of guilt, proof that she feared exposure. With the USB drive's files in hand, Alex started preparing for the battle ahead. The HOA bylaws, the secret documents, and the support of wary neighbors were his weapons. But he knew the fight for control wouldn't be easy. Karen and her allies were powerful and ruthless. And in Willow Creek, the calm surface was just a mask for a dangerous storm brewing beneath. Days passed, but the tension in Willow Creek only thickened. Alex felt the weight of every watchful eye, every whispered warning. Karen's shadow loomed larger than ever, and the subtle threats continued to escalate. But beneath that pressure, Alex had uncovered something powerful, a loophole buried deep in the HOA bylaws, a clause rarely mentioned, almost forgotten, yet potent enough to suspend the entire HOA board if abuse of power or misconduct could be proven. This was the leverage Alex needed. Sitting in his study, surrounded by stacks of documents and notes, Alex meticulously prepared his case. Every email on the USB drive, every secret meeting note, every whispered threat was catalogued with precision. He knew that to use the clause effectively, he needed undeniable proof, and he had it. Yet, even with the weight of evidence behind him, a nagging doubt lingered. Could he really challenge the entire board? Could one homeowner really turn the tide against the neighborhood's iron-fisted rulers? His phone buzzed, a message from a neighbor who had remained silent until now. "We're behind you. It's time." The support sparked a flicker of hope. The next HOA meeting was scheduled for the coming week, and Alex knew this was his moment. When the night arrived, the community room was packed, the air buzzing with tension. Karen sat at the head of the table, her expression unreadable, eyes sharp as knives. She greeted Alex with a cool smile, clearly aware that something was about to change. As the meeting began, Alex requested the floor. Murmurs swept the room. The board exchanged quick glances, their confidence flickering. Alex spoke clearly, his voice steady and firm. "I've uncovered evidence of misconduct and abuse of power within this board," he said, placing the USB drive on the table. "The community deserves transparency and fairness. According to our bylaws, if a majority of homeowners agree, we can suspend the board until a full investigation is conducted." Whispers erupted as he presented the evidence. Secret communications, threats, attempts to intimidate residents, and the arson of his boat, all linked to Karen and her allies. Karen's face hardened, but before she could respond, several neighbors stood up, voices rising in support of Alex. Their courage sparked a wave of solidarity. The meeting quickly turned into a heated debate. Karen tried to dismiss the claims, labeling Alex a troublemaker trying to disrupt the peace. But the evidence was overwhelming. As votes were counted, the community's voice became clear. A majority demanded a suspension of the board. Karen's iron grip was slipping. With the board suspended, a new temporary committee was appointed to oversee the neighborhood. Alex felt a surge of triumph, but knew the fight was far from over. Karen didn't go quietly. Later that night, as Alex returned home, he found his mailbox stuffed with another note, this time filled with an ominous warning. "You've won this round, but the war is far from over." Alex folded the note carefully, a determined smile creeping across his face. He had turned the tide. The quiet neighborhood was no longer ruled by fear, but he knew Karen and her allies wouldn't give up without a fight. And as Willow Creek braced for the fallout, Alex prepared himself for the battle ahead, because sometimes standing up for what's right means burning down old rules to build something better. The suspension of the HOA board sent shockwaves through Willow Creek. For the first time in years, the neighborhood felt a breath of fresh air, tinged with uncertainty but ripe with possibility. Alex found himself at the center of this shifting tide. The temporary committee entrusted with leading the community was a mix of longtime residents tired of Karen's reign and new faces eager to make a difference. But even as the neighborhood rallied around him, Alex sensed that Karen wasn't finished. Late one afternoon, while sorting through paperwork in his home office, Alex's phone buzzed. It was a message from an unknown number. "Meet me at the park after dark. I have information you need." The cryptic note sent a ripple of curiosity through Alex's mind. Could this be a trap or a new ally? That evening, Alex arrived at the neighborhood park under the cover of darkness. The familiar swings and benches looked different in the moonlight, quiet, waiting. A figure stepped out from behind a tree. It was Mr. Thompson, a neighbor who had been unusually quiet throughout the entire ordeal. Alex had always suspected there was more to the elderly man than met the eye. "I've watched this unfold for too long," Mr. Thompson said, his voice low but firm. "Karen isn't acting alone. There are deeper layers of control. Some of the board's decisions have been influenced by outside interests." Alex's eyes widened. "Outside interests? What do you mean?" Mr. Thompson handed Alex a thick envelope. "Look through these. They're emails and contracts linking some board members to a shady development company that stands to profit if the neighborhood's character changes." The revelation was staggering. It wasn't just about Karen's personal vendettas. There was a bigger scheme at play. Developers wanted to transform Willow Creek, and the HOA board had been paving the way, quietly and ruthlessly. As Alex scanned the documents, the pieces fit together like a puzzle revealing a hidden enemy. The destruction of his boat, the intimidation. It was all part of a plan to silence dissent and clear the path for this takeover. Empowered by this knowledge, Alex realized the battle wasn't just for his boat or the HOA's rules anymore. It was a fight for the soul of the neighborhood. He decided to call an emergency community meeting. This time, he'd bring the evidence not just to challenge Karen, but to rally every resident against the looming threat. At the meeting, Alex laid out everything: the emails, the contracts, the threats. The room buzzed with shock and anger. Neighbors who had been silent finally found their voices. The support swelled, transforming from cautious hope into a unified force. Karen and her allies tried to deny everything, but their power was crumbling. The community's eyes were open now. For the first time, Alex saw genuine hope in Willow Creek, a chance to rebuild, to protect what made the neighborhood home. But even as the community united, Alex knew the fight was far from over. Karen's threats lingered like a shadow, and those developers wouldn't give up easily. Still, with allies in the shadows now stepping forward, Alex felt ready. Together, they would expose the corruption and reclaim Willow Creek. And as the night deepened, the once silent neighborhood hummed with a new energy, one fueled by courage, truth, and the determination to fight back. The momentum was shifting fast in Willow Creek. The community's unity was growing, fueled by the damning evidence Alex had uncovered. Karen's grip was slipping, but that only made her more dangerous. Karen's calm facade cracked. In the quiet hours before dawn, she convened secret meetings with her remaining loyalists. Whispers of retaliation and sabotage filled the air. Karen wasn't just going to accept defeat. She planned a final, desperate strike to crush Alex and anyone who stood with him. One night, Alex's phone rang repeatedly. When he answered, a distorted voice warned, "Stop this now, or you'll regret it." He knew this wasn't empty talk anymore. The next morning, a flurry of vandalism hit the neighborhood. Yard signs supporting Alex were torn down. Cars belonging to his supporters were keyed and slashed. A community bulletin board was set on fire, a chilling echo of the boat arson. The message was clear. Karen was fighting back with everything she had. But instead of retreating, Alex doubled down. He organized patrols with neighbors, documenting every act of vandalism and filing police reports. The community rallied behind him, refusing to be intimidated. Karen's desperation led her to a risky move. She attempted to call an emergency HOA meeting. But this time, it wasn't to defend her actions or save face. She planned to use the meeting to reverse the board suspension and regain control. Alex and the temporary committee prepared for a showdown. The night of the meeting, tension was palpable. The community room was packed to capacity, a battleground where power and justice clashed. Karen opened with a speech full of accusations, painting Alex as a troublemaker tearing the neighborhood apart. She begged for another chance to lead, promising change. But Alex was ready. He presented the ongoing evidence of intimidation, vandalism, and the developer's plan to transform Willow Creek. Voices rose in the crowd, demanding accountability and transparency. As votes were tallied, Karen's final attempt to regain control was crushed. The suspension stood. The temporary committee's mandate was renewed, with a renewed commitment to protect the neighborhood. Karen's expression hardened. She left the meeting with a cold warning. "You haven't seen the last of me." That night, Alex received one last message, chilling in its simplicity. "This isn't over. Watch your back." But Alex was no longer afraid. The community had his back, and together, they were stronger than any threat Karen could muster. The battle for Willow Creek was far from over, but the darkness was finally being pushed back by light. The days after the final HOA meeting were charged with cautious optimism. The neighborhood had survived Karen's last desperate gambit, and the temporary committee began the painstaking work of rebuilding trust and transparency. Alex found a strange calm amidst the chaos, but the final message, "This isn't over. Watch your back," still echoed in his mind. He knew vigilance was essential. One afternoon, while reviewing more documents uncovered from the secret shed behind the community center, Alex stumbled upon a sealed envelope addressed to him. Inside was a handwritten letter from Karen herself. The letter was unexpected. No threats, no veiled warnings. Instead, it contained a confession. Karen admitted to setting fire to the boat. She claimed it was meant only to scare him, a twisted warning to back off, not to destroy. But the fire had spiraled beyond her control. She also revealed the deeper reason behind her ruthless campaign. Years of pressure from the development company to sell the neighborhood's land. Karen had believed that resisting was futile and that cooperating would bring prosperity. But as the resistance grew, so did her desperation. The letter ended with an unexpected offer. "I'm tired of fighting. I want out. If you promise to protect this neighborhood from those who seek to profit from it, I'll step down quietly." Alex was stunned. The enemy had suddenly become vulnerable. He called an emergency meeting with the temporary committee and key neighbors. The room was tense as Alex read Karen's letter aloud. The revelation changed everything. Karen's admission was a breakthrough, a chance to end the cycle of fear and retaliation. The community debated fiercely, but ultimately agreed to accept her offer on one condition. She must fully cooperate to expose the developers and their plans. Karen agreed. Over the next weeks, Karen's insider knowledge helped Alex and the committee uncover critical documents and communications, tying the development company to corrupt board members. The evidence was turned over to authorities, triggering investigations that promised to protect Willow Creek's future. With Karen's cooperation, the neighborhood began healing. Alex's leadership was recognized and celebrated, but he remained humble, knowing the true victory was the community's united spirit. The final twist came when Alex discovered something else hidden in Karen's letter, a key to a safe deposit box at the local bank. Inside, he found financial records and personal diaries, revealing that Karen had once been a beloved community member, pushed into darkness by manipulation and threats from those very developers. The story of Karen was no longer just about villainy. It was a tragic tale of power, betrayal, and ultimately, redemption. Willow Creek had survived its darkest chapter. The boat was gone, the threats had faded, and the neighborhood was stronger for the fight. Alex stood by the lake, looking at the calm water where his boat once floated. The night was quiet, peaceful at last. But he knew one thing for sure. True power didn't come from fear or fire. It came from standing together, fighting for what's right, and never letting the darkness win.